Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. As you may have noticed, after a brief period of catching up on YouTube more than a week ago, I've been absent again for at least 10 days or so. I've not put up a video. I haven't watched nearly as many of your videos as I would like, and I haven't even responded to the comments y'all have been kind enough to share with me. Mostly I've been sitting on my bed, sweating, and staring into my fan, which is running full blast. I've really been enjoying the start of Jane Austen July, and I hope to talk about what I've been reading soon, perhaps at the end of the week for Friday Reads. And I've been watching the coronavirus news excessively as I waited to hear whether my son's college would reopen its campus this fall and what will happen to his international girlfriend. And I worry whether my mother in South Carolina is okay, and whether my mother-in-law in Florida is okay. Both are states that are current hotspots. I have gotten some reading done. As I said, I'll be talking about Jane Austen soon, and I'm planning to put together a video or two about what I read at the end of June. But today I'm celebrating Tag Tuesday by doing the summer school tag that Doris at HannahsBooks created. The first prompt of the tag is Language Arts. Tell us about a book you were assigned to read in school. I went to school back in the dark ages, and I was a student in a state and county that did not fund the school system well at all, in a place and time that were pretty anti-intellectual. Sometimes I look back and think I might have been better off. I had a few amazing teachers, and my neighborhood, as well as my personal house, were filled with smart and dedicated people who helped me learn. And the fact that my school required so little from its students gave me abundant time to devote to reading what I loved, to studying piano, at which I was terrible, but which I loved, at participating in regional science fairs purely for fun. But after I've thought a bit about the positive educational experiences I had despite school, I sometimes think about what I didn't do in school, and I get so disappointed by all that I missed in my early education. When I was in the 11th grade, I took British literature, the only English class taught to 11th graders in my school. We had a textbook with excerpts from a variety of works, but for most of the year, we read aloud during class time from the two books we were assigned that year. The first was Clan of the Cave Bear by Jane Austen, the first book in a series about a young Cro-Magnon girl brought up by a clan of Neanderthals. Austen was a strange choice to use as an author for a British lit class, since she's American, and the idea of teaching this book in a basic literature class is also a bit strange, since I don't think many people would think this work has any significant lasting value as literature. But my teacher, I guess, thought it would be exciting for us and encourage young people to read. Or perhaps she thought it would be exciting for her. And honestly, since we merely read it aloud, the fact that the book was not a great choice for learning literary analysis or whatever was not much of a problem. The other required book for British literature was, in fact, at least written by a British person. Published 10 years before I was in high school, Alive, the Story of the Andes Survivors by Pierce-Paul Reed, is an account of a rugby team in Uruguay whose airplane crashed into sub-zero temperatures in the snowy mountains of the Andes. Many of the passengers died quickly, and their bodies were preserved by the frigid temperature of their surroundings. When food supplies were depleted, the passengers who were still alive ate the dead bodies. This book is nonfiction. At the time, someone, perhaps my father, recommended that I pair this required reading with a book I read for fun, Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. That semester cured me of reading at the table, at least for a while. Anyway, enough of my cold rant about my high school education. The second prompt is math. When will I ever use this again? Share a book in which the characters need math skills. Well, my math education really wasn't better than my English education. My favorite use of math in a book occurs in 84 Charing Cross Road by the glorious writer Helene Hanff. She has to use her math skills, such as they are, not only to keep her book buying budget in line, but to order books from a store using another currency. This American woman orders books from a shop in England, and converting from English pounds to US dollars takes more energy than she's willing to spend. Often she more or less says, "Take all my money, just keep sending me the beautiful books." And the residents of the bookshop gently do the figuring for her. Third prompt, science. What was the last science-related book you read? Early in the spring, I read quite a bit about the 1918 flu. Primarily, I was interested in the social history of the time, but I definitely learned not only a history of medicine, but a little real science too. Another option that's also pretty non-sciencey science that I read this year is Robert McFarlane's short book about the language of the natural world, The Lost Words. It's a lovely little book that came into my hands at just the right moment. The next prompt is social studies. Share a book from your TBR that is translated or deals with government. From my TBR for translated works, an author I really want to start reading this year is Proust. I think I'll start with Lydia Davis's translation of Swann's Way, although when I read the follow-up volumes, I'll have to rely on different translations. For a book about government, I recently picked up Peniel Joseph's study of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and where their politics diverged and where they converged. And during September, I'm hoping to check out 2 politically relevant books on Shakespeare. James Shapiro's new Shakespeare in a Divided America and Stephen Greenblatt's recent Tyrant. For number 5, exploratories. Which category of extra non-core classes did you take the most of in high school? There were no extra courses available in my school, really, unless you include advanced language. And by advanced here, I mean third-year high school level French taught by a teacher who had never left the Carolinas. As I said earlier, I did some of my own things outside school, though, and music was the most significant one. When I became deaf in one ear a few years after college, music started meaning a lot less to me, but I still love to see how important it is to others, especially to my very talented son. Perhaps I can convince him to put up a few clips of his performances. Question 6, Common Core. Share a good pairing of a fiction with a nonfiction book. In my mid-year book tag, I mentioned how much I had been obsessed this year with the subgenre of combo memoir literary biography. My favorite one so far has been Catherine Smythe's All the Lives We Ever Lived, Seeking Solace in Virginia Woolf, which makes a seamless pairing with Virginia Woolf's own beautiful novel, To the Lighthouse. If you have time to start creating a whole unit study, try adding in Mitts by Sigrid Nunez, essentially a biography of Leonard and Virginia Woolf, told through the eyes of their pet marmoset. Okay, prompt number 7. Research. What was the last topic that inspired you to seek out books so you could read up on it? I definitely went down a bit of a rabbit hole reading and making TBRs of corona-adjacent books, in addition to books about the 1918 flu, which I mentioned earlier. I put the Decameron and Camus' The Plague and Defoe's Plague Diary on my list, along with Stephen Johnson's Ghost Map about the transformation of London due to the 1854 cholera epidemic. I've also gotten a bit obsessed reading and planning to read about anti-Black race riots, as well as about the history of street protests against racism in the United States. I've already discussed 1919, Eve Ewing's stunning book of poetry about the Chicago riots of that year, but I have a history that I've just started reading, as well as some other books that I hope to get to soon on this general topic. Question 8. What subject area would you teach if you were a teacher? I'm really drawn to teaching humanities in a cross-disciplinary way, and I'm most prepared, I guess, to teach at the intersection of history and literature. My graduate training is in history, and I've always written about American social history and its concerns. But I've decided I think more like an English teacher than a history teacher, and that teaching literature from the close reading approach, but especially from the context-driven historical approach, is a natural step for me. I'll talk more at some point about my efforts to travel down this road. The 9th prompt asks us to share a photo from our school days. Given my full house right now, I can't get to the pictures of me when I was small without interrupting other people. So here are a few from a bit later. One when I was in nerd camp the summer after my junior year in high school. I'm the one on the left without the hat. One from my college years when I was home for winter break. And one when I had just graduated from college and was a teaching assistant at a different nerd camp, the one where I met my husband. I'm the one in the center of the group, and the young man with the beard was the professor of the class. We were celebrating the end of our Southern history class by cooking a feast of various foods from the U.S. South. Finally, tag some fellow lifelong learners. I want to tag a group of 3 folks who are helping me move forward in my own efforts to keep learning. The first is, of course, Steve Donahue, who always focuses my attention on books both new and old that I want to read. Recently, his march through his penguins has inspired me to acquire Pepys' Diary, one of Boswell's diaries, and Boswell's long biography of Samuel Johnson. Right after the last one arrived on my shelves, Matthew at Mayberry Books decided to create a read-along of Boswell's Johnson, going on this month. Matthew is such a model of a person who reads for pleasure and who pushes himself to read the stuff that often intimidates us. He's been working through the Norton Anthology, for example. Anyway, Matthew is new to Boswell's Johnson, as am I, and he convinced Steve Donahue to join him as a host and to help lead us through this enormous book. And luckily, Ami of the channel Amin 1649, or Ivan's Nightmare, has joined in as well, with his very thoughtful commentary full of interesting insights. All 3 of these booktubers are definitely committed lifelong learners, and I would love to see what they come up with for this tag. Thank you so much for joining me today here on Hannah's Books. See you soon.